world of football is, I wouldn't say it's normal, because all of a sudden...
It's never been normal, is it? It's absolutely bonkers.
I am joining you live from my bar.
Oh, wow. Well, potentially could be worth it for 30 goals a season.
Hello, my name is Roshan, Narayan, and thank you for joining us on In 20. We are back, Danny. Thanks for not leaving us, because this is a show on a very tight budget. Oh, we love you, Danny. And the only reason why
Winter break, Roshan, we had a nice little winter break.
We did have a winter break, but it was a break well-deserved for you and for the rest of the team. But let's get back into business. And business states that Wayne Rooney right now, in my opinion, has the toughest job in the world. From a professional point of view,
I think Boris Johnson might have a few questions about that.
And that's how we get banned, like Joe Rogan. Wow, comparing ourselves to Joe Rogan, not rubbish. But Boris Johnson, I love him, especially that rugby tackle in the charity game. If you've watched it on YouTube, it's the funniest thing ever, along with wine and cheese. But wine and cheese is something that Wayne Rooney won't have right now on his table in his office at Derby. Because it's a living nightmare in terms of what the club has gone through.
You say that, Roshan, but in terms of managerial setup, there's almost a part of it that becomes a little bit easier because there is no pressure, there's no expectation, no pressure, there's no transfer dealings, there's no ability to bring players in, to bring the right players in. It's very much everyone thinks we're relegated. It's backs against the wall. Let's just go out and play and see what happens because nobody expects us to overhaul this points deficit. You know, if we get anywhere close, we've performed a miracle. Everyone thinks we're great. It's a little bit like, I think, sometimes when you come out half-time, you're 3-0 down. And all of a sudden, you put in a really good performance second half. There's no pressure at that point. There's no jeopardy. The pressure will really come if they get close with 2 or 3 games to the end of the season. And then it changes. You're right. It's an almost impossible job, the things that he's having to deal with. But look at what Frank Lampard did at Chelsea when there was you couldn't bring any transfers. It works really well. It's one less distraction sometimes because as a manager, one of the hardest things to get right is recruitment and bringing in the right players for the right positions and making them fit in.
Yeah, but Danny, we can talk about the Chelsea players that have always been on loan, and they literally have a stockpile ready to go. Yep,
of course.
And at Derby County, they're literally selling everyone. It's like shades of the Sunderland documentary, where every 5 seconds someone is being sold, your top player is gone. But from his point of view, he's got very little to work with, but yet he's getting things done. Isn't that something remarkable?
Oh, it is, and he's doing a fantastic job. And I think, but that's what I mean. Sometimes it can galvanise you. It's like the world's against us. You know, everyone hates us. We've got no chance. Every single situation is going against us, lads. So, right, come in. Let's work hard. Let's be organised. Let's improve. You know, let's all work together as a team because we've got no option. I can't get rid of you lot because I can't bring anybody else in. So that gives a little bit of confidence to the players, knowing that they can't be booted out. You know, that they're unlikely to get dropped because there is nobody else. And suddenly, if you and it's not easy, and he's done really well in this, create the right mentality in that group. It's like, right, okay, it's a siege mentality. It's us against the world. You know, we are 3 levels below underdogs in this situation. But if we do it right and we fight, we can come out of this with some pride and everybody going, wow, they've done pretty well for themselves.
Okay, he's been there for quite some time, player, manager. So the person that was there before him, was that an experiment that has gone wrong and has now been proven it was wrong? The amount of money spent, behind the scenes, things of that nature?
It's been going wrong at some time. Obviously, Philip Cocu experiment didn't particularly work. I assume you're alluding to Frank Lampard, been in the football club. But look at what Frank did. You know, he had Harry Wilson in there. On loan that performed excellently. They actually played really well yesterday at Manchester City as well for Fulham. Look what they're doing in the Championship. Mason Mount that he brought in. Look how well he did at that time. Frank didn't spend big in the transfer window. When he was at Derby, didn't have too much money to spend. And I think at the time that was the right sort of club for Frank and his coaches. Obviously, he then moved on. The way that Derby has been run over the last maybe 8-9 years, that's what's caused their demise, not necessarily the different managers.
Okay, if you're born after 2000, I don't think you might think of Derby County as, a Premier League team. But it is a very big club, like Preston as well, Preston North End. These are big clubs because I was fortunate enough to grow up and watch these teams in action via television, not in person.
Yeah.
But these clubs are big clubs. How do they go from the Premier League to all of a sudden, oh my God, we're gonna go out of existence?
Sunderland did it, Leeds did it, Portsmouth did it, Sheffield Wednesday did it, Southampton did it. It's when you overspend in the Premier League and you get relegated, and then suddenly you have a fire sale. You've got to get rid of players for half their value or even less than that because you need money, and everybody knows you're desperate. So obviously your stock price falls dramatically. It's very, very difficult. As I said, all those clubs I've just mentioned, similar things have happened to them, and it's certainly not easy. And that's what happened to Derby. They flirted with getting promoted. They got close. When you spend all your money and gamble, to get back into the Premier League and it doesn't happen, you're in a very, very difficult position. They've got some big players on big wages, going way back. They then had one or two disasters with that, and that's what's caused them problems.
So the quick one on Wayne Rooney, should he have taken up that Everton gig? Because teams like Everton don't come about every other day.
No, and it must have been really difficult to turn down the interview for the job because obviously it's his boyhood club, a little bit like when Frank went to Chelsea. That's tough to turn down. But he probably feels at the moment that he's in a good place. He's got a good bunch of lads. It's working well for him. And as I said, even if Derby get relegated, it's not an issue really, because no one expected Wayne Rooney to do as well as he's done this season. From last season, where people thought, oh no, this Wayne Rooney's not the right person for the job. They survived by the skin of their teeth and by some strange situations, with points deductions and not points deductions and financial fair play and everything else going on. But now his stock is quite high because of what he's done. And if he survives, it will be unbelievable. And they're only 7 points behind at the moment.
Yeah.
With quite a lot of games to go. That would be an absolute miracle, and his stock will rise again. So I just think he probably looked at the whole situation, thought maybe it's a little bit too soon for Everton. The pressure there, the expectation would be absolutely huge, and it's probably a really difficult decision, but possibly for him, the right decision.
A quick one: if he does keep them afloat in the league, would that be greater than what Steven Gerrard accomplished at Rangers?
I think it'd be greater than what Leicester did in the Premier League.
Oof, wow.
What was it? 21 points. A 21-point deduction. Survived last season on the last kick of the season, effectively. Yep. That was how close it was. It was ridiculous. And to get them to safety this season, because if you add on their 21 points that they lost, they'd be up there in the playoffs. So with no money, not being able to make any signings, having to sell players constantly, that is an absolute miracle. I don't know what the odds were of surviving at the beginning of the season, but they weren't good. Simple as that. So I think it's up there. If Derby survive, it will be one of the greatest sporting stories of all time.
All right, well said. Let's move on to the African Cup of Nations. Listen, I don't mean to be disrespectful, and obviously when you try and talk about something like that, the word racism is thrown in, but we're just talking about football, correct? Purely football-based topics. It's always that question mark that always it pops into your head, the refereeing decisions. You go back to that Mali-Tunisia game, when he stopped the game way too early, and then all of a sudden you see all these decisions. Is that one of these main reasons why competitions such as this don't get the respect it deserves? It certainly
doesn't help, Roshan. And I think it goes a lot deeper than that. I think you have to look at the whole organisation of the tournament. I think it was early on. Games have been changed. At one point, I was watching games and the commentator was talking about, I can't remember, one of the quarterfinals. It might have been Burkina Faso. We're going to play this team. And all of a sudden later on, no, actually, that's been changed now. They're going to play it's a different route, a different quarterfinal. I think last night, the third place playoff game was changed sort of last minute. So it's not just the refereeing decisions, it's the organisation or setup, and it has to be compared to the Euros because that's the equivalent effectively. It's Africa's Nations Cup. Euros is, Europe's Nations Cup. The organisation, obviously, in the Euros is far better. Those sort of things would not happen. Refereeing, there's been some debatable refereeing decisions, but I think it goes a lot higher up the pyramid than that. And the organisation across the board just looks a little bit sketchy. At times it's almost like, oh no, they're making decisions once the tournament has begun, rather than having everything prepared and set in stone.
Yeah, I mean, nobody will ever question the talent that comes out from the continent. It is unbelievable. It's some of the best players in the world.
The Mane situation with a head injury, that would never happen in a European competition, whether that be Premier League, UEFA Champions League, or in international tournaments. That's surely the fact that he played on and then was fit to play a few days later. That has to be putting the player in some kind of danger. Because he was sparked, he was out of it. If that's a boxing match, the towel's coming in, the trainers are in, the doctor's in. That's game over. That's fight over. That's stopped, isn't it? And it's things like that. I think that African Cup of Nations, that's where it lets itself down.
Yeah, well, like I said, the talent is never in question. You mentioned about Champions League and referees. That one game comes to mind. I won't go deep into it, but Chelsea Barcelona. Was it 2009? Right.
Still wasn't quite as bad.
I'm trying to just climb out of the hole, Danny, but never mind. Let's get back into the hole.
The facts. The problem is, Roshan, the facts are there. It's not. We're not being disparaging. We're just stating the facts and that everybody's seen.
If Cameroon beat Egypt, will Mane finally get the recognition he deserves? Because in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, he always gets overlooked because of Salah.
But Mo Salah is at the moment, one of the greatest players in form in the world. He's absolutely outstanding. I think it's difficult. Mane had a slow build up through the tournament. Yes, they've been winning games, obviously, and got to this stage of the tournament. If I had a choice of buying one of them, I would take Salah. I just think his skill levels, his consistency is better than Mane. They're two very, very good players. The Ronaldo-Messi debate, I think, was always 50-50. I think if you look at Salah and Mane, I think you're looking at maybe 60-40, 65-35 in favour of Mo Salah.
So 2 questions on that. If Mane does beat Salah, a little more respect will be given his way, correct?
Yeah, but it's still a team game. Depends how he plays. If he goes out there and scores a hat-trick and it's all on him, then without a shadow of a doubt. If he has a very, very quiet game and it scored from a set piece and they probably don't deserve to win the game, as often can happen in football, then no is the answer. It all depends on his performance, not the result.
And if Salah goes on to win the competition with Egypt and a bit of success with Liverpool, will he finally be voted the best player on the planet instead of coming ranked 700?
He certainly deserves to be higher than 700. But then I know, of course it was. But then you have to look at Lewandowski. What does he think every single season? The amount of goals that he scores all the time. I think it'll be, obviously, that the problem is this now happens in January. Ballon d'Or gets voted for at the end of the year. People can forget about it. So he has to have another 10 months or so playing incredibly well for him to win that Ballon d'Or.
The joke I was referring to was the fact that Salah finished, 7th or 8th in terms of the world ranking, best player in the world, which is never mind. Forget about it.
Ridiculous.
You spoke about Lewandowski. He scores goals in the Bundesliga. Salah scores goals. A lot of goals in the Premier League. What has happened to Lukaku after that interview with Sky Italia? He spoke about this. He spoke about that. He hasn't backed up his words.
No, he hasn't. So I think it's going to be an interesting one for Thomas Tuchel. He's got to have to work with a player. Obviously, he's now definitely got till the summer. Chelsea are still in a strong position and challenging on different fronts. Lukaku needs to pull it out of the bag. Simple as that. We saw him at Inter Milan, where he looked leaner, he looked meaner, he looked hungrier for goals and everything else. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting time for him and Chelsea towards the end of the season.
Does this talk about his quality as a player because he succeeded in Italy? And no disrespect, where things might have been easier for him?
I think the team were more set up to him and his strengths in Italy. I think the whole team was built around him. And, he was the spearhead of that. And everything was aimed at him. The service, the midfield, everything was set up to get the best out of Romelu Lukaku. That's not necessarily the case at Chelsea. They have a slightly different setup, and you have to be more of a team player and fit into that team. And he's just struggling to find his feet within that team at the moment.
But when you make a statement like that, you as a player need to back it up.
Oh, of course you do. And you can only do that by hard work. Now, obviously, there's been a little bit of a break. It's been sort of after a very, very busy festive period. There's been sort of all sorts of breaks going on, winter breaks, and some teams have played, some teams haven't, FA Cup and not. So I think now, when we get back into it proper, sort of this week onwards, he needs to show up. And hopefully he's used this break to his advantage, maybe got a little bit fitter and is ready and raring to go.
All right, there's a situation in Barcelona where Frankie de Jong, who I rate really highly as a footballer, might be available. There's Manchester United. There's a few other clubs. Would he go in there and solve that situation?
Probably not. Not at Manchester United. They've got bigger. It's not the quality of players at Manchester United. They should have battered Middlesbrough, the other night in the FA Cup. They created enough chances. Ronaldo misses a penalty. Bruno Fernandes misses a chance that's easier than a penalty. The keeper stood on one side of the goal and he hits the post. They had ample chances in that game. For Manchester United, it's just not quite happening. It's just not quite working at the moment. People talk about formations and 4-2-2-2, and that's irrelevant. Formations don't win games. Good players adapt. It's just a basic structure, to start with. Whatever's happened, Manchester United, a little bit like under Solskjaer, will win games because they've got enough good players, but their performances aren't quite good enough at the moment. And I think now it looks like it could be touch and go whether they make the top four.
Oof, that's harsh. So it's worst kept secret because it's already out in the news. PSG have said Pochettino would be leaving. Is this a game of chess? Get rid of, or say Pochettino's available. Here you go, Man United, so we can take Zidane?
Well, you'd assume, obviously, Ranić is supposedly going to step down at the end of the season. Pochettino's been linked with Manchester United for a long, long time. He likes a project. He likes to develop players. It would seem like the perfect fit, wouldn't it? Everything at the moment, everyone's putting two and two together and coming up with four. It does seem like everything's all done and dusted, and it's already in the bag and all sorted out. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows in football? 24 hours can be a very, very long time, and things can change quickly. But on the face of it, it looks like that's what's going to happen.
You've got about 40 seconds. Who would be a better fit for you, Zidane or Pochettino for United?
Oh, Pochettino, without a doubt. Zidane is a fantastic man manager of great players, having been one of the world's best himself. As a coach, I'm not sure. I don't know his credentials. And when you look at what Manchester United need, yes, they need a leader, strong leadership, but they also need a very, very good coach to get the best out of those players, because that's not happening. And there's a lot of young players you've got to bring through as well. And that wasn't necessarily Zidane's forte, but it is Pochettino's forte. All
right, Danny. We can continue this conversation about Zidane or Pochettino next week. Thank you very much. Our winter break is over. All our talking points on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter account. Till the next time, take care.